Hello, and welcome to some critical but not prominent shipbuilding trends of the 1880s to 1950s, 1940s, Part 1, World War Two. And this is, of course, if I'm not mistaken, Part 9 of 11. Wow, you're going to go, Alex, that's a Liberty ship. And I'm not sure what the one is above, but that doesn't look that dissimilar. It isn't that dissimilar. It's a fort ship. Well, to be honest, technically, it's HMCS Cape Breton, or, well, it was originally ordered for the Royal Navy as HMS Flamborough Head, transferred in 1952. She is a Cape class maintenance ship. She was originally ordered as one of the Beachy Head class repair ships for the Royal Navy during World War II. And this is the point that's often forgotten. This is the Liberty ship. There are many others built for Victory ships, slightly improved, modernized design, the Fort class ships, the Park ships. Park usually were ones owned by the Canadian government, Fort by the British government, built in Canberra. Hundreds, thousands of these ships are built. They are not just ships used for transporting goods. They are a large number of flexible hulls, which are adapted to many, many different ideas. And arguably, one of the most important of these is the maintenance ship. And it's one of the most forgotten vessels in World War II, about World War II, and it's one of the most forgotten today. In that, if you turned around to most governments and you went, you know what, I've just about got you to spend some money on some tankers. I'm trying to get you someone to spend some money on some solid store ships, and what I really need is a forward maintenance ship. Huh? Britain managed to maintain one for a while. We've had Diligence going around for a while. She is probably not going to get replaced. The Americans have sort of, potentially, depending on how you look at them, in the right light, potentially, maybe, vaguely, possibly, got something as well. But if you ever want any show of how unserious the modern world is about fighting wars which might last longer than 5 minutes, and how thoroughly unprepared governments are for fighting wars which last longer than 5 minutes, it's the lack of maintenance ships. And there are three reasons for this. One, the Royal Navy in the 1920s and 1930s put a lot of effort into working out which islands and which ports, whilst not having existing infrastructure, so wouldn't really be look that great on a map, could be quickly utilised in the event of war as basing facilities. And the idea would be a ship like this would turn up, maybe with a destroyer a destroyer support ship or a submarine support ship or both, and they would set up the maintenance facilities, and they had the maintenance facilities for forward maintenance and repair of most of the support things which cover 60-70% of the functions ships need done. Anything short of a dry dock, and you can have a portable floating one of those that comes along as well. And then you have pretty much a full-on facilities for maintenance repair of ships. There are limitations to what they can do, but there's not a lot, and it allows you to maximize your forward, moving all your ships far away from your home, far away from your main base. Nowadays we don't. 1940s they had plans for it. 1930s they had plans for it, and 1920s they had plans for it. They understood it. They had some floating docks. They had those things, and in World War II they greatly expanded them, and it was taken as understood. It wasn't a case of, but we need more cargo ships. You obviously need more cargo ships for the Battle Atlantic and the convoys and the supplies going around the world. You obviously need more, but yeah, we also understand we need maintenance ships. When you consider most weapons used in this time period, all weapons, really, were to one extent or another able to be moved by human power. Okay, the big shells on the on the battleships, and torpedoes. You're going to say immediately those things. Yeah, you're going to need some cranes, some derrick cranes, but to be honest, most ships carried their own cranes, or in the case of torpedoes, they were occasionally known to be taken up the gangway. It wasn't exactly sensible or safe, but they did it. They would put them on trolleys, things which could take the weight, and or they'd have their own crane on board and quickly use that to get them on. Or they'd be next to something like this, which with its crane could get them on quickly. But most shells can be carried by human, or a box of them can be carried by a pair of humans. Certainly most ammunition. If we consider the components, there were often larger crews on ships to perform maintenance than we have today. Having maintenance ships is sensible. Having maintenance ships means that instead of someone being able to look up all your basing facilities on Google Earth, plot in the targeting fairly accurate, maybe using the Free Words app, and just if war happens, beep, press the buttons, preset targeting, off go the missiles. Hang on, where are they? Okay, I have satellite reconnaissance now, and maybe those CubeSats, which Jamie of Armored Carriers is always on about. But the thing is, there's an awful lot of islands, and there are ways of protecting yourself. There are ways of putting up a large amount of radiation, a large amount of ECM into the air, which can make it difficult to detect. And what you could do is you could put a DCM up over several sites. The ships might only be under one or two. But the thing is, I have several different sites I have to consider I might have to attack. My life becomes more complicated. And it's one of the interesting things is these ships. Their capabilities. They have a decompression chamber. There are different shops for different trades, such as engineering, diesel engine repair, sheet metal welding, coppersmith, electronic repair, and all sorts of others are created within the ship because it has a lot of space. And that is the basic point of the ship. It has a lot of space. It's in many ways like a modern small container ship. You could take one of those to one side and could quite easily turn it into the equivalent of this. It would have a lot of space. The reason she's transferred to the Canadians is because They want, in 1950s, they want to expand the range of the fleet and sustain operation against Soviet submarines deploying west. And that meant moving the sustainment operations of the fleet east. You want to move them away from your main bases. You want to be able to set up a forward base. There you go. One of the things forgotten about World War II, we talk about the huge amphibious armada made for D-Day. We forget some of the other operations that amphibious armada takes part in. We talk about the huge number of escorts built to fight the Battle Atlantic, to such an extent that people sometimes believe those escort programs were crash programs emergency started in the beginning of the war, when actually many of them were started before the war and were based off developments which had taken place well before the war. We talk about AA cruisers. We talk about the rise of the frigate, which is actually more of a development of the corvette, which is a development of the sloop, and the frigate itself comes from a sloop. They're all things which you can see coming. We talk about the huge numbers of merchant ships built, but we don't really talk about what they're used for. Auxiliary carriers, the escort carriers, they get a mention. Oh, that's amazing. But 21 of these ships are built for the Royal Navy alone as repair ships. 21. That's a lot of support. That's a lot of facilities. And that's not something which should be forgotten when we're looking at modern logistics facilities. One of the issues currently affecting the world, well, Britain especially at the moment, is a shortage of HGV drivers, that's heavy goods vehicles drivers, or truck drivers, which means that the logistics systems are starting to break down a bit. This is post-COVID in 2021. It's not even really post-COVID, it's post the massive lockdowns for COVID. COVID's still around. That's a problem. And that is really causing an issue. But imagine if, instead of the drivers, who are far more numerous, we are facing a shortage of mechanics. Well, then you get two layers of problems. You get both the vehicles themselves, when they break down. And remember, these are vehicles which are not being actively shot at, so it's not people actively trying to break them. When they break down, not being repaired, their maintenance not being done. And that in turn means that supplies, which would go to other shops, aren't getting through, which becomes part of the cycle. Modern just-in-time logistics is very cost-effective. It's very cost-efficient. It means you don't have a lot of capital sitting around tied up in goods, in warehouses. It's beautiful from a financial perspective. From an operational security perspective, not so great. From a war fighting perspective, no. No. And I think that's where this gets forgotten. I think these have got forgotten and their roles have been forgotten because it doesn't fit the modern appreciation of what makes an efficient, effective logistics system. And the thing is, The real question you have to ask is, yes, procurement by industry, commercial standards might be bad, but what are the scenarios that a commercial procurement is taking place on versus a government procurement should be taking place on? Government procurement should probably be based on, well, reliability and continuity of service, i.e., the ability to withstand trauma and carry on work functioning, whether that be natural disaster. I'm not sure what we would call a pandemic, a medical disaster. I know some people keep calling it a natural disaster, but that seems wrong. It's different from an earthquake or a volcano. Ecological disaster? Well, no, that's more something we tend to use to describe locusts, etc. So let's say medical disaster. These things are things which governments are supposed to be prepared for. Militaries, parts of government, are supposed to be prepared for warfighting. And warfighting is going to involve damage and is going to involve problems. And unless you are planning on never fighting a peer, i.e., never fighting who's someone equivalent to you in conflict, you need to take that planning very, very seriously, because there aren't really going to be that many safe places, if any, in a peer-on-peer conflict. The problem when we hold up the Falklands War as a peer-on-peer, a peer-on-near-peer, let's get that right, conflict, is at no point did the Argentinians really have the capability to reach Britain. Not by conventional means. There's just no hope. The British can send a Vulcan bomber from Ascension all the way down to the Falklands, and they can deploy Vulcan bombers and the tankers needed to Ascension. The British can do that. Argentinians, no. The British can deploy a carrier battle group all the way down to the Falklands from the UK. Argentinians, deploy your carrier battle group to the North Atlantic to fight off the British coast. No. Now you can say that's because of their different objectives in the war, but the thing is, though, the British never, at no point were the British going, we have to keep back a significant fleet in the North Atlantic just in case the Argentinians come north. That was at no point considered. That's not a peer-on-peer conflict. Near peer, maybe, but it's not peer-on-peer. And in that, the British have set up a lot of ships which are quasi-maintenance ships. That's when RFA diligence comes into being, and various other vessels come into being. Because you need them, because you're deploying a long way away. But the question is, why didn't Britain, which was apparently preparing to fight a serious war against the Soviet Union, where much of the fighting was probably going to have to take place in the GI-UK gap, that's the Greenland, Iceland, UK gap, and Norway. Places, let's be honest, Iceland got some good port facilities, but not that many. Norway, again, some good port facilities, but not many. Greenland. It would have been beneficial to have had these sort of ships available. You could have forward deployed your force far easier and been far more helpful. And the interesting thing about Farnborough Head, or as she becomes Cape Breton, is that while she's officially decommissioned pretty much, she's no longer operationally serving in the Canadian Navy in 1964, she's still used as a floating machine shop until the mid to the late 1990s. Which means she's kept in a certain level of repair, which means she's For her job, probably activable. Miles you get to the late 1990s, probably not. But she's sold for use as an artificial reef after that and all these things. But she's still viable. She's still useful. It's useful. Right. So, hello. Now, why am I wearing my hat, which is this one, and why am I going to talk to you about this? Well, if you've watched these videos before, you'll know why. If you haven't watched these videos before, you won't. The answer is my aunt has, well, the way my family communicates and gives ourselves, a little fun is we have family bragging rights bets. And the one currently going on is about my subscribers and Blackburn face masks. Basically, my aunt has said that if I get to 13,000 subscribers by the 31st of December 2021, she and my uncle will be pictured wearing Blackburn face masks. Now, we have, of course, family honor and all these things online, but more importantly, family bragging rights. And I can't get there without your help. So please, if you like the videos, like them, share them, subscribe if you haven't already. Press the little bell down there. Everything you can do to help is greatly appreciated because it does depend on me doing this. Right. Ooh, what have we got coming up? Well, we have Chiefs of the Staff of the 1880s Navies, including Carl Bonnets. Now, let's see, this is episode 9, so I'm fairly sure that started that series, and it's probably been up this morning. In fact, by my count, episode 9 should be coming out on the 11th, Saturday the 11th, so it started yesterday, and there's been a second episode up today of that already, so hopefully you're 2 episodes into that, and hopefully you're enjoying that series. And hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to do a live. Take care, thank you, and hope to see you soon.